Okay, cool. Welcome back, people, to another episode of One Step Away From. My name is T, and I'll be your host for today. So today's topic, some viewers may and listeners may find emotional, controversial, and some conspiracy in there too. So with that being said, I have to reiterate that the conversations we have are of our own opinion through our life experience and, of course, due diligence in research. Yes, I am talking about the pandemic that's held us hostage for the past 4 months, COVID-19.
Oi.
That's the topic for today, boys.
Yeah,
So,
boy.
I'm just going to jump straight into it, boys.
Verna.
What is COVID-19?
Okay, you're not starting off light, are you?
Nope, jumping right in it.
What is COVID-19? Well, I guess the question is, what have we been told COVID-19 is? If I go off my own knowledge base, I think COVID-19 is oh boy, I don't want to step into actually, in fact, what I will say is that COVID-19 is something that has caused a reaction in the world like I have never seen before in my lifetime. And some people might call it a sign of the times. You can read into that as much as you want. Some people might say it's a conspiracy. You can read into that as much as you want. And some people might say that it is actually a pandemic, a world pandemic, or is it an epidemic? I can't remember. There's a correct wording for that. One of them. It has a mic on the end anyway. So apparently it is a virus that you can catch through airwaves, through saliva, fluids and stuff like that, which has the symptoms of cold and flu-like symptoms. And apparently that can then exacerbate into your respiratory system where you will die, basically, because you're unable to get the oxygen into your system. And that has apparently knocked the world for six in terms of death rates. Has increased dramatically, and the response to that across the world has been what we see now, which is isolation, even though we're coming out of the other end of it now. However, there's speak about a second coming. So in terms of what I feel COVID is, I personally feel that it is something that is led by government officials in order to get us into a position where we are. Oh, it's difficult to say this without going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Like I said on the intro,
I'm gonna jump in
it
a
might be
minute.
controversial.
It's a governmental-led initiative, and a lot of people might disagree, but I believe that is the case in regards to the outcomes that I'm seeing. Now, the outcomes that I'm seeing is there's policies being put in place that are almost being reactive or being seen as if it's law. It's not law. This is not a law. You cannot be convicted for not abiding by isolation policies. However, there's been legal ramifications that's been added onto this, such as fines and almost curfews. Without saying it, they're almost saying curfews. Now, that's not legal by any means. And some people might argue it is. It is a civil request. Get that in your head, people. It's a civil request. It can be put to a level of, I guess, military action, which would be a military state, but that's a whole different matter. But at this current stage, it's a civil request. So yeah.
Okay. I'll jump on the back of that. First and foremost, I think the severity of deaths in this time period where it was announced as a global epidemic, we have to kind of appreciate people have lost their lives in that period. And depending on their stance on what they believe, like people have lost their lives, people have lost family members, whether it's been connected to it, whether it's been direct result, or they've had COVID-like symptoms. I think we need to kind of just appreciate and rest in peace to anyone that's been affected to that, and obviously thoughts and condolences. However, similar to where Kay stand, and yes, it is a real thing, one way or the other, where it be an economic push, a governmental push, or a actual health push or exposure. this is up for debate. However, for me, I'm going to start off with a pace where I'm sure you guys will be able to kind of bounce off from. So for me, I believe there is a virus out there, but how it came, that's where I have to ask questions. And by asking questions, I try to kind of do research, understand. Now, I'm going to use a particular person as just as a benchmark in terms of how this discussion may develop. Bill Gates. Okay, so for me, doing a bit of research and whatnot, and I'm not going to lie and say that I'm really clued up on it, but from what I've kind of looked, which is to the public knowledge, it's online, you can find it, it's not hard to find. 2017, and it's on YouTube, Bill Gates, amongst other people, I'm not just going to use him, but like I said, this is public. Bill Gates speaks about there being a deadly epidemic coming. And listen to this, like the key words that he said was either naturally or intentionally. Not my word. These are not my words, guys. Like, I'm sure if you've seen it or whatnot, if you haven't, it's out there to be heard. Like the words are either naturally or intentionally. 2017. So I'm not even going further back in terms of when he started finding certain things. I'm not going to go there. October 2019. There is a scheme called Event 201. So remember, the official coronavirus kind of how it filtered through onto the news, that started around about December 2019. October 2019, October 18th, 2019, there's a scheme called Event 201. And I'm just going to read this out because it's not on the top of my head. I'm not going to claim that I knew this from day one, but this is what I found. So just bear with me. So the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201. This was a high-level pandemic exercise on October 18th, 2019 in New York. The exercise illustrated areas where public/private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish larger-scale economic and societal consequences. Event 201 simulated an outbreak of a zoonotic coronavirus transmitted from bats to pigs to people that eventually becomes efficiently transmittable from person to person, leading to a severe pandemic. I could go on. I really could go on. This event 20
is disgusting.
This event 21, like if you look it up, guys, like I said, we can add the descriptions. This isn't just me making something up. It's out there to be seen. It's all there, and literally, what's played out over the last 4 or 5 months is pretty much what was simulated in inverted commas. So this is where questions get raised for me. I could go on, but I'm sure you guys get where I'm coming from in terms of this information. I'm going to be honest, this information was new to me until maybe a few days ago. And when you read it, like I said, even the examples like from bats to pigs, like even if you're simulating it, in my opinion, at least use different animals. So when you announce it on the news, it's not the exact same animals that they're referring to how it started in real life. This is people's lives at stake, mental and physical. And I just feel like something like this obviously wasn't well documented, but to be fair, it was documented. So I'm going to leave the pace or set the pace at that. That's my stance in terms of, I appreciate that there are people who have been affected. There are people that have had health issues that have led to deaths. The numbers are out there to be seen. The accuracy of it, I don't know, but I'm going to leave my start on this conversation as with the Event 201. And for the listeners out there, look it up.
Cool. Yeah, I hear all that. Knowing those things there that you're mentioning, I've looked into them bits there, but I'm gonna come from a bit of a different perspective with this whole COVID scenario that we seem to be living in at the moment. I've worked straight through. Obviously, you got the whole furlough scheme. It's been affecting people's households and that, and I've worked straight through this whole pandemic, and I've seen a change in behaviours. I've seen a change in people's habits, just that social norms, that social behaviour, just even the thing of saying hello. I've seen that change. Now, when the first whole lockdown happened, I saw people, well, we all saw people losing their heads. And what was apparent to me for this is that a change was coming at the end of it. So my perspective on what COVID is, I've fully accept and respect the fact that people have lost their lives. Yeah, and it's affected a lot of people, you know, and my condolences do go out to those people. I've been fortunate enough not to have that around me at the moment. Through, I don't know, fortune or whichever way you want to look at it. But saying that I've been going back through this, and it's I think really it's the government that have set things on the wrong path, panics people, panic buying, and there's just new norms are coming in now, new norms and new behaviors. Like it's a hard one for me to fathom really, because I don't know anything different. I've never lived through anything like this before, but I've seen a lot change in the past like 4 months just in human behavior, and I think that was the whole plan, really. Yeah, and that's where I'll leave it at that pace there.
I think I'll jump on the back of what Es said. I do believe that this so-called pandemic is real, and I also think that at the same time, I think it was deliberately put amongst the population to kind of cause havoc. You know, I believe it's very difficult to say, but it almost appears like, you know, it was purposely put amongst the population. I mean, prior to Christmas, everybody was going about their merry way and, you know, living their normal lives. And then, you know, within the space of, you know, we were all watching it on the screens, weren't we? It was in Europe first, and you know, it was in China, and then started to spread into Europe and places like Italy in particular. And then, you know, before you know it, it's here, and it's causing havoc, and people have died as a result. I believe that you know, that there's a lot that we don't know about it, but I also think the government in some way has got a hand in it, and that's my take on it for now.
Okay. Yeah, well, the original question is, what is COVID-19? I mean, on the surface, it's a virus underneath the umbrella or the crown of the coronavirus. COVID-19 is just a specified strain of it, I guess you would say. Is strain the right word? Strain?
Yeah.
So on the surface, that's what we've been told it is. Like Kay said, it affects your respiratory system, you know. They say it started in China, as Donald Trump likes to call it, the invisible virus from China, the invisible enemy from China, as he likes to continue saying to this day. So on the surface, that's what it is. It's something that's affected a lot of people. It's taken a lot of lives, affected a lot of homes. But yeah, to agree and to go along with everyone's saying, it has a more sinister, which I think is more sinister than the virus itself, is the government's hand, or governments around the world hand in how they've used it to their advantage, in terms of bringing in a transition, like S mentioned. It's like they used it as something to bring in a transition into how we operate and live our daily lives. They probably used it as a tester, in my opinion, to see how different countries would handle something of this magnitude. How would people react? People on different in different classes, as we saw, poorer people who went a bit crazy, literally fighting each other for basic necessities like toilet paper. obviously the rich, they stockpiled already. They already have their contingencies in place. So I think, yes, it's something that affects the body, but the powers that be, quote unquote, used it as something to affect the minds of the world in terms of use it as a tool for control. Yeah, that's what I've got to say about why. That's what I think COVID-19 is.
Okay, interesting. So I have to echo what most of you have said on this about, obviously it's affected a lot of people, and in many ways, some people have fallen ill from it, recovered. Some people unfortunately lost their lives. So my condolences to everyone that's been affected by it. But going back to the question, so it was, what is COVID-19? So when I put that question down, I was thinking, okay, I need to find out what is COVID-19. Put it up, exactly that. What is COVID-19 on the internet? And the answer I got from the World Health Organization was COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. So I'm like, right, that doesn't explain nothing to me because I thought it was the same thing. So I've then put in, what is coronavirus? And hopkinsmedicine.org came up with a different answer. So it was, coronavirus are a type of viruses. There are many kinds, which some may cause disease, some may not. A newly identified coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, which is what it is at the moment, as in the pandemic.
Sorry, T, did you say the Hopkins Medical?
Yeah, the hopkinsmedicine.org.
Okay.
That was their definition of it. All right, so I then wanted to look deeper into, like most of you said, for me, there's a lot of questions. Do I believe it's real? Yes, I believe it's real, 100%. I'll give you my reason why I believe that in a second. But I wanted to really understand how it came about. So I went online.
Able to jump on the back of that. You said SARS-CoV-2.
Yep.
-2, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. You said that because that's apparently, as you said, that is a new strain. Mm-hmm. Now, when I hear new strain, I think, what's the old strain? And I've done a little bit of research into that as well. And apparently this is as you said, T, this is a new coronavirus. There's old coronavirus. And one of the other previous ones is called IBV. Now, I don't know if you've heard of IBV, but that stands for infectious bronchitis virus. And apparently that only exists in birds. So what that is saying is, and these are developed in laboratories, by the way. Mm-hmm. This is not a naturally occurring virus. This is not something that just came out of the earth by itself. These are developed viruses. Now I asked the question, why was there a developed virus in the first place?
So just before you jump on, and because that was obviously you were speaking, and just to echo what you were saying, Kay, just going back to that event 201, the simulation that they done like 6 weeks before it was announced to the world there's an actual world pandemic. The pathogen and the disease, and I'm reading from an actual official statement. Links will be in the description. The pathogen and the disease it causes were modeled largely on SARS, but it's more transmissible in the community setting by people with mild symptoms. So in that simulation, the pathogen and the disease it causes that was modeled like really like. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I agree with what you were saying, and I'll shed some light on more what I've done in terms of my research. So I looked at, on YouTube, there's this channel called the Epoch Times. They touch on, controversial stuff. So this researcher went to try to a few virologists, they're called, where the scientists that actually research viruses. And they were going back as to when it actually started and whether it started at a seafood market, like they said, right? And what they found was, one, it didn't start at a seafood market because they said it came from bats. There were no bats found at the seafood market, right? When they dug deeper into it, they actually then found out there was 3 papers published in China by a Chinese scientist who was trying to make a link from these bats that had the COVID-19 virus in them, and to how they could be transmitted interspecies, right? She published 3 papers. Like I said, it's called the Epoch Times documentary. You can go on YouTube, look it up. It will go in detail. It's about an hour long, but it will go in full details of how this, to me, smells fishy. So they said she published, the first paper where she published was, she was looking at the virus and how it could eventually be able to infect humans. But first of all, like you said, Ems, they were looking at pigs and other animals to start with, right? And then she published another one to conclude their findings. Then another one in 2015. That was the last paper. And when they traced back to the patients, the ground zero patient had no links to Wuhan seafood market. And as the cases built up, 14 of the 41 first patients had no ties to the market either. Right? So to me, then straight away, I'm like, okay, so the narrative that we were sold about it started from people eating bats changes things.
And the thing is, what I'm hearing from that as well is that that's such a, this is what people use in general as it's called deflection, isn't it?
Yep.
When you don't want someone to put the spotlight on you, you deflect the conversation to wherever that isn't where you are or where you don't want the spotlight to be shined on. Now, what I will do is make a similarity in terms of causation. I'm going back to Ebola. What did they say was the number 1 carrier and the cause of Ebola becoming an epidemic? What was the cause that was being thrown out there?
It was bats as well, wasn't it?
Oh, really? Really?
Mm-hmm.
And who was eating the bats? Apparently that caused this?
The Africans.
Oh, okay. Strange. Now suddenly it's bats that were being eaten by who?
By the Chinese.
Really? And who on them both occasions, who told you it was Africans and Chinese eating down bats?
Across the media.
Yeah, the British media.
But who,
Yeah. But let me expagorate on that.
That's what I'm saying.
So let me expagorate on what I was saying. And then they dug even deeper. So they were saying for the virus to naturally transmit into species, it would have to mutate itself, right? Because what can infect other animals can't infect human beings, because obviously our biological systems are different. But they found that some of the enzymes in the virus was 100% identical to those that were found in the bats, which could only mean reverse engineering. It was no way possible naturally for this to happen except reverse engineering. That was the only way. So for
are you
me,
able to explain a little bit about, for the viewers, what reverse engineering might entail?
Reverse engineering is where it's being developed in the lab, where they've added other
variables.
Other variables to make it possible to transmit into humans. Right? There was no way possible except reverse engineering. Let's understand that. Right? So then, to me, it then goes in. I don't know whether I can't make up my mind whether it was the British media or the politics or whatever it was. But for me, I have a lot of questions which speaks conspiracy in my mind. because what they said about the Chinese, the numbers that came out, the Chinese weren't being transparent about how the infection was going on there, and the fact that it was only in one region in Wuhan. That's where it was. But then it managed to affect the entire world. But in China itself, other regions didn't get affected.
Mm-hmm. And also just about, I don't want to keep being that guy that keeps referring back to something, but I actually think because there was something simulated, it's probably good to kind of keep referring back to that to actually match what you guys are saying that actually happened since it is announced, just so you can see the similarities. You guys touched on something about the media. There was 7 recommendations in this simulation, Event 201. I'm going to keep saying that because it's actually, as we talk, and just for transparency for the viewers, like, we haven't had this discussion before. Like, we're coming to the table just with our own thoughts and feelings. This wasn't kind of preconceived. I need to kind of make that clear. Point 7 of the 7 recommendations, I'm not going to go through all of them because that's too much time, but point 7 of the recommendations in this simulation is governments and the private sector should assign a greater priority to developing methods to combat mis- and disinformation prior to the next pandemic response. So what does that mean to you? To me, it means like they're already preparing of how to kind of, as we said, cover up, as we said before, try to deflect, try to kind of maybe direct people in the wrong way. So that's already a recommendation of how they're simulating this whole thing. And just before, and I'm going to sit back for a little bit because I know I've been speaking a lot, but this is actually really infuriating me actually because it's been in our faces all this time. T, you mentioned about some of the research that you've done, and just to back up onto that, part of this simulation, among the selected players, as they were called, was the Professor George Fu Gao, who is the director of the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention since 2017.
Yeah, he was mentioned. He was mentioned in that video.
Yeah. His specialization includes research on influenza virus, interspecies transmission, so basically a host jump. He's also interested in virus ecology, especially the relationships between influenza virus and the migratory birds or live poultry markets, and the bat-derived virus ecology and molecular biology. And it just goes on to say Professor Gao was joined among others at the panel by the former deputy director of the CIA during the Obama term, Avril Haines. She also served as Obama's assistant to the president and principal deputy national security advisor. So the plot is thickening. Too many connections, too many links, too many people involved in the simulation that actually pops up when it actually is the real pandemic. I don't know, man. I need another drink.
So going back to what I said, I believe this was real. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's something that obviously I put in the back of my mind, but I thought, do you know what? It's a good time to bring it up because I was one of the unfortunate people, but also fortunate enough that my mum got ill from this. She's a frontline worker. She got
condolences, brother. Condolences. Well, not condolences because she ain't gone.
Well, she survived. Yeah, you know.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
So if I'm being real, like when she got ill, she's a frontline worker. She was in NHS. She rang up. Yeah, you got the symptoms. Self-isolate. Right. Now, bearing in mind, the government was screaming that they're giving test kits to NHS. My mum could not get one because they said they weren't available as yet. Just to add to how this thing, to me, is more personal than some of you might be. The government was screaming on the news. I'm watching the news. I'm hearing the government saying they've got test kits coming through. NHS will be tested. And I've got my mum at home being told, all you got to do is self-isolate. She had self-isolated for about over a week, about 9 days. And then it got worse. Now, bear in mind, I couldn't go and see her. all I could do was FaceTime her, right? Just to check in.
That's horrible, man.
That's deep. That's deep.
Right? Now, she gets worse. She rings in treble one. They then said, okay, they're going to send an ambulance. So I've driven off. My mum doesn't live far from me. I've driven up. I've got there. I can't get into the house, so I'm stood across the road. Right? An ambulance pulls up. They go in, fully kitted out. And after about 5 minutes, my mum walks out. I can't even touch her. I can't get close. I can't even go to the hospital with her. Right? I know there are people that have lost their loved ones, and I can only imagine what they went through. Because I'm not going to lie to you boys, what that felt like that time was crazy. It was, you will feel helpless to say, that's your loved one there, ill. You can't touch him. You can't do nothing. You can't even get close to him. Anyway, she gets in the ambulance drives off. And you're hearing in the background numbers of people dying every day. The news is running around saying this and that, to a point where I had to switch off the news. I didn't want to watch the news. I didn't want to know anything, because in my mind, the last image I had of my mum was her getting into an ambulance. And I didn't think she would make it. Believe it or not. Yes, I prayed or speak to the family, and I was, as the oldest son, you were expected to hold the fort. And I was doing that for everyone around me, my family ringing and everyone else. But in my mind, I was petrified, right? More so petrified to the fact that I wasn't by her side when she was ill. God forbid, if anything had happened, that was going to be the biggest regret I would have had.
That wasn't your fault though. Like that power was taken out of your hands, big man.
Now I know that wasn't my fault, but I'm just letting you know that other people who have unfortunately lost their loved ones, they probably have that in their mind.
Yeah.
So I don't take this conversation lightly.
Nope.
Because to me, when I see things like this and I do research, like you said, we all just got together here today. I've been doing my own research, everyone has, and we have this conversation and we realize this may not be as natural as they said it was.
100%.
I am bitter about it because I almost lost my mum. My stepdad got ill too. Almost lost both of them, right? My mum's a frontline worker, so obviously she brought it home. So this, to me, I am bitter about it.
You know what, T? How does it really hit home when we talk about the possibility of this not being a natural causation, and then how it's impacting your personal home life? Like, how does that really sit home, hearing this new information that's coming out, and that if this is true, then what it means that trying to say this in the best way possible for everyone hearing as well. If this is true, that this was some way formulated and planned by, I guess, world thinkers, that the outcome that they knew that deaths would occur on large scale. And there has to be a disconnect from emotion that they have, if this is true, towards people such as your mother, and how it will impact their loved ones too.
All I can tell you is I am bitter about it. On one side, I'm grateful that I was fortunate enough that, she went in hospital for 6 days. She recovered. She came back home. She's still not 100%, because apparently you can never recover 100% from it. That's how bad it was. But bitter is not even the word. To know that people would actually go to these extreme measures for an experiment, playing with other people's lives.
Yeah, that's
this is life that we're talking about. Maybe whether it was China doing it as a warfare, whether it was the whole world thinkers doing it as an experiment, I do not care. What I care about is it affected my loved ones.
And that's the deepest
And that
part.
to me, that's the deepest part. So yeah, I'm sorry it made down the conversation, but
nah, man, that's real. That's real.
I have to be real and then just say how it is, because a lot of people got affected by this. You're talking.
The COVID situation brought your mum brought you, it's all one step away from, my man.
100%.
It's
You're
all one
talking
step away from.
45,300 people dead so
That's
far.
mad.
That's
mad.
45,300 in the UK.
Yeah.
The chances of one of us knowing one person who has someone who has died are very high. I've got a friend of mine whose mum's friend passed on because of this. So when you're hearing that and your own mother is in hospital, or you're hearing death numbers just going up and the media is going crazy about it, because all they were speaking about was death. They were not talking about the number of people that recovered. It didn't give
that's a good
anyone
point.
hope.
You know, that them things weren't really in the mainstream. Like hearing that though, it does bring it home, because it's affected. Like, obviously it's affected a lot of people, but when it's a bit closer to home, when it's one of your brothers, it's like, okay.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
This is whoever's pulling the strings is affecting my people emotionally. This is a whole different feeling now.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
I agree. It's a lot more poignant.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of your own.
100%. I just want the viewers and listeners to know that we don't take this conversation lightly.
No.
Some people may think, oh, we're conspiracy nut jobs. We're not taking this lightly. We have done our research. We've got questions.
Of course.
And the answers are not adding up.
It's not. And going back to what Jay said about, just mentioned about the government maybe having a part to play. Let's just say hypothetically, guys, that this was something that was, the strings were being pulled, as well, like I've alluded to this simulation. They failed on so many aspects of it. So if you're talking about, is it called PPE? Like the equipment, is it PPE? Is that the right thing?
Yeah, PPE, that's right.
Yeah, that's right, man.
I had a family member that got coronavirus that worked directly in care homes, and the PPE equipment wasn't available. And she got 5 kids. But another one of the recommendations, and this is where there has been a failure, is that the recommendation was for this simulation was government should provide more resources and support for the development and surge manufacturing of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics that will be needed during a severe pandemic. Now, did they do that? Did
Nope.
the government? There you go. So that's a failure there. That's why people.
And that was, as I say, as you said, that was recommended as well.
Yeah. But no, we don't take this lightly. We don't take this lightly at all.
It's a madness considering that the world knew about this. England knew about this way before it got serious like this. And we had the opportunity to learn from other countries. We had the opportunity. And nothing was taken seriously until the numbers started to skyrocket, man.
And that is scary, isn't it? Because that kind of reeks of the touch of the deliberate.
Yep.
If you remember, one of the top scientists said if we had gone into lockdown a week earlier, the number of deaths would have been halved.
Yes.
Yep.
100%.
If you remember that.
I believe that's all to do with economics and what the country could have dealt with this whole furlough scheme is costing like billions. So what the country could have dealt with was not what it should have been. So they had everyone working out there for another couple of weeks. We were behind other countries with the R rate and things like that. So we went in. They thought we went in at the right time, but figures are showing that we went in too late, man. We went in too late.
That just shows you that the mentality, they put money over people's lives. And when you think about the people who are being affected, it's people who are either working class people. It's really, 100%. If you look at it, the people middle class and working class, the people that are holding this country up. So the fact you're going to risk their lives for an extra week of money.
Yeah, but even now, let's
look
at it even now. The reason why they've eased the lockdowns and relaxed the rules, it's not because the hour is down. Let's be real. It's because the economic is
It's
suffering.
like, yes,
Suffering, yep. It
definitely.
is suffocated at the moment.
Definitely. So for economic purposes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've got different cities that have gone back into lockdown, Leicester, for example, Milton Keynes, and some parts in London.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about care to me. They're looking at the economic and thinking, well, naturally anyway, the conservative have always been like this.
Well,
It's all about making money.
I thought this was about care, because if you go outside your house and clap for the NHS, everything's all right. Yeah, everything's all right.
Listen, that whole thing was a joke. I saw two, not being disrespectful, I saw two paramedics come out of an ambulance with one of those plastic PPEs that you see in restaurants or people that work behind McDonald's, and gloves and a face mask. That's all they had. Walking in a house where they knew there was a patient with COVID-19.
The thing is, yeah, all I know is this, and this might be I know this will be an unpopular view, because I walk the street, I see the many windows with the rainbow drawings that their kids have done stuck onto their window and all stuff like that. And when an ambulance go past, people go out there and clap the NHS. How's that going to help? I don't understand why people don't understand this. This is just a show of, I guess it's a placebo effect. It makes you feel better. It doesn't make that paramedic who's got to get up and risk his or her life. It doesn't make the NHS worker, the nurse, even the cleaners, down to the cleaners in a hospital. It doesn't make their life safer. You coming out and clapping does nothing, man. You coming out and drawing rainbows does nothing.
Yes,
there's no power in that.
You're right. It's a smokescreen. It's a smokescreen to make people feel better about themselves.
Yes, man. And we need to get ourselves out of that. Now, what is the answer then? Well, the answer isn't clapping. The answer isn't drawing pictures. We know that, Jay. Just logically, we just know that doesn't actually impact anything. The answer is supporting NHS staff members who risk their lives daily by doing what? Then they should have better pay, more funding, and better equipment to keep themselves safe, so they can do their job more effectively. That's the answer. Now, that
but
goes
did you
down.
see the news? Did you see the news this week?
Please tell me.
Well, they haven't even given the pay rise to the nurses and all the frontline workers.
Oh, but we can clap though.
Yeah, I believe in.
We can draw a rainbow though.
Our Prime Minister said, "I don't believe in gesture. I believe in action." So you went out and clapped for the NHS, and then when it came to pay rises, you didn't give him none. Right? That's one. Two, parking for the NHS. Right? They were protesting. Suspend the parking so we can at least be at the hospital. Most times that got done 2 weeks. And then after that, they put back the parking charges for the NHS staff. The people that are helping your country to get back on their feet, you're still charging them daily rates to park their cars to do their job. So much for caring. So much for wanting to act. Like you said, putting rainbows and clapping on Thursday, it doesn't help. What's the population in the UK? I'm not sure, but I'm sure we're millions and millions, right? If all of us were to say £1 each, just £1 each, sacrifice a month, how much do you think that would pump into NHS? If we really want to act, if we're really talking about acting.
But we have to make sure that that money is put into the correct place, because I've seen there's corruption in this game, yeah? And when we're talking about the populace of the UK giving £1 each, that's going to perk a lot of people's attention. It's going to perk their attention. There's a lot of people in the medical field who are about that money. Let's not even get into the pharmaceutical companies and how they deal with things. Yeah. So when we're talking about that level of money, how are we going to directly get that to the ground workers? Because it's always the ground workers that miss out. It's the top CEOs and the directors, and that they get the money to disseminate, and they take the biggest cut. How are we going to get the ground workers in and step up their level? Because as far as I'm concerned, if ground workers aren't being treated fairly, as you say, they have to pay to park at their own place of work, then to come out onto the street to help people who are dying from a virus that they could catch and take home to their family. And yet all we can do is come out on the street and clap and draw a rainbow.
Yeah.
And then when it's the time for our so-called prime minister, I say so-called because he's not mine. He's not mine. Take it however way you want. The time for him to act, he doesn't act. So what does that say about him really caring?
And I think that whole situation speaks to a greater problem that we have in society, in terms of we would take something as the media or whoever came up with this viral thing of clapping for the NHS, yeah, we would rather take that as action than putting the people who have the true power to holding them accountable. Do you know what I mean? We rather go outside and clap than actually protesting in front of 10 Downing Street saying, listen, our nurses need this, our paramedics need this. We would rather clap than to hold actual people who can make a difference in these people's lives, who are risking their lives, accountable. And I think that speaks to the brainwashing of society that this pandemic is brought to light. That we are, as a society, we are brainwashed. We would accept these things than overdoing what actually is right.
It was playing on the people. It was playing on the public's emotions, especially involving like the clapping and the rainbows, and especially when you're involving kids now, it brings up an emotive thing where it then becomes an event. Like, I can honestly say, and this isn't because I don't value what the NHS do and have done, but I never once went out to clap. But I have my own personal reasons for that. But I know a vast majority of the country, up and down the country, did. Because it was an emotive thing. When you're, don't get me wrong, when you're out there and you're seeing your neighbours that you probably wouldn't have spoken to if you wasn't in lockdown, they're all outside clapping, banging pots and pans and stuff like that. It does bring up like a sense of like togetherness. Like, come on, let's be real. Like, we're all human. We understand like what those type of things do. It brings
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, exactly what you mean.
100%.
Sense of community and all that. So, but
does that come from maybe you've had an experience with the NHS, childbirth, family member being put through the NHS and coming out the other end and having positive results, and you think, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I reckon a lot of I think everyone has probably has had an experience where it involves the NHS in their life, whether it be family, anything like that. Like, let's be real. Like, you can't get away from it. You can't get from illness. You can't get away from cancer. All of those things. So yes, it is an emotive area to talk about and to kind of think. You know what? I remember when my mum got through something. I remember when my uncle, like, it's just like I said, it's an emotive thing. But when you mix emotion with fear, and I'm going to quote David Icke on this. He says, "Fear is the currency of control," and that is so true, because if someone is fearful of something, or if you've got a group of people that are fearful, they're easier to control.
Sorry, can you say that one more time, for you could slow that down for the listeners, man. This is
fear is the currency of control, and that's not my quote.
Fear is the currency of control. Hear that?
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think the clapping, and I understand, like with young ones and whatnot, especially when they're out of school, like just to try and just put some.
To me, that is sick. To use young kids to manipulate, to shy away from what actually has to be done. To me, it's actually sick.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But the kids are out of school, so they're just think about their mental. And I've been in the house like for however long, especially with homeschooling and stuff like that. Like you've seen the impact it's had on children. Like, what the hell is going on? They're too young to comprehend everything. Yes, they're away from school, but after a while, it becomes okay. I want to go back to school. Like to take that away. Like there's no other generation that has probably since the war, maybe,
had to go through this,
where they've been out of school for such a long period of time. So
the war and Spanish flu.
Yeah. So the most recent time, probably the Second World War, I'd say. It's quite, so if someone leave a comment in the comments section, if there's something more recent, please let us know. But what I'm saying is that with all that emotion going on with young children and also the parent, think about all of us, what we had to, all the adjustments that we've had to make, some more than others, stress having people around the house. So doing those little things actually probably for a lot of people is just a bit of a release to go out and just do something, get out the house basically, because there was
100%.
a time when we couldn't literally leave the house apart from the odd occasion to do like a hour run. So that was a sense just to get out. But once again, was that controlled? Probably.
Right.
For me, when I realized, I have to echo what Jay said, when I realized like how much we had been brainwashed to a point where the government would dictate everything we do, was when the craze for toilet paper went on.
That was real.
That's when, for me, the penny dropped.
Dropped
like,
exactly that. Boom.
So people have gone mental over toilet paper. Nowhere else said toilet paper.
Yeah.
That's when I realized,
you can't go and take a shower to clean your body.
Exactly. I was like, wow, we are being controlled. That's when I realized there's something way more at play here.
I'll jump on the back of that because you're right. There was no toilet paper around, and I remember having to.
We don't do poos anyway. We don't do poos anyway. So
of course we don't. Of course we don't. But I remember having to. I remember having to drive to another town because there was.
I'm done.
There was nothing. There was nothing in the town that I lived in. I had to drive to another town.
But can you use some kitchen roll?
No, I think that's known to block up toilets. But
and you might have a sore backside, but you know,
that's very much so. Yeah, but the bottom line is there was such a drought in that area. You had to, literally had to drive to another town. Unbelievable.
But for me, I just want the viewers and listeners to actually comprehend what we're saying here. They pushed a narrative of toilet paper, and we went mental for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, imagine if you're trying to control the world and you see you've put a narrative for something as trivial as toilet paper, and people go berserk. What are you thinking? You're laughing. You're like, right, I've got you, because I can say and push whatever I want, and you will lap it up.
No, here's the thing.
And push the prices up of commodities.
Here's the deep thing in terms of what all you lot are saying, from what R said to what T said to what M said, S said, and J said. Yeah, now we're hitting home now, ain't we? We're hitting that home run now. Now we're really delving deep into this social experiment aspect of it. And I want to just say to the viewers, don't buy into the terminology of society in terms of the word conspiracy. A conspiracy, when someone says that, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, what does that do to your psyche? You've already preconceived that whatever information you're about to hear is dismissive or can be easily dismissed. So don't buy into that. Just because we say the term conspiracy theory, don't allow that to trigger certain aspects inside your brain, which you link to ideas and theories that can easily be dismissed. Yeah? Really understand what we're saying here and do your research, yeah? What this is speaking to...
I love conspiracy theories, to be honest.
I love any information that is valid. Yeah, that's what I love. Yeah. Now, what this is speaking to is social control. Now, just like T said about the toilet paper, what I saw in people was separation. That's what I saw in people. When this whole pandemic started and people said, oh, you got to get your pasta, you got to get your toilet paper, you got to get your rice, you got to get all your tin foods and that. Guess what everyone done? They went with their shopping trolleys and swarmed the supermarkets, which done what? Pushed up their profit rating. Which done what? Made you see your next door neighbor as your competitor. Not your neighbor that you live by. You can borrow a bit of sugar, borrow a bit of milk. I know I'm probably going back old school now, but
but the premise is still the same.
The premise is that we're now all individuals, and I only care about my house and home. And if my house and home don't have rice and pasta and toilet roll,
I'm going to take yours.
I guarantee you, I'm going to take yours. And guess what that does? That splits the not only the consumer, but the civil people. which does what? If you split the civil people, you protect the governmental figures, because it takes
100.
people who are integrated as one to take on to take on governmental figures. Yeah, it takes people integrated. You need to be two together. You need to move against a government as one if you don't like something. But what they've done, they've proven that we are separated people, and they proved it by bloody toilet roll. Are you kidding me?
I think
So what have we learned? What have we learned from this, man?
Boom.
by splitting the people, you also create anarchy as well.
Yep. And you can see that it's evident. Everyone's got social media these days. Everyone's a reporter. Do you know what I mean? You see someone arguing in the supermarkets and that. No one's calling for help. Everyone will pull out their phone.
Yeah,
People are
and just to
fighting,
echo,
like in the supermarket over toilet roll, and it like everyone saw the videos, the vines, the memes. Like it was just like we got an announcement on the telly saying, "This is your last chance," because after that, this is it. That's how people were behaving.
exactly. And just to echo what Kay said about, if we look at this, the supermarkets before all of this happened, remember they were struggling. Yep. Remember, some of them were going to merge as one. Some of them were going to cut jobs. Tesco, for example, I remember they were in a bad place. If you look at their books now.
Asda's and Sainsbury's are looking to merge as well, weren't they? Under Walmart. Yep.
If you looked at their books now.
Yeah, of course. Which is what goes back to the beginning, when your first initial question, when I said I'm looking at this a little bit different, and to how it's a behavioural norm now. Like people now are learning new ways, and it goes back to what Kay said, it's a whole separatism thing, and now you're in competition with your neighbour.
Exactly.
Those seeds have been planted now. In my beliefs, those seeds have been planted now.
And them seeds have been proven to be fruitful.
Thank you.
It took only toilet paper for me to now look at you as, you know what? Yeah, my life matters more than yours. You know, so
100%.
Even though I only need one bag of rice, I'm gonna take 6.
Yeah,
and all those behaviours that we are speaking about, and I am going to go down this direction just for me. I don't need anyone else to kind of jump on it, because I think how I feel about it, I have my own kind of views. But all the behaviours that we are speaking about seeing your neighbour as your competitor, greed, basically, they are all direct contradictions to what, for me, from a biblical aspect, in terms of what is taught and how we're supposed to be as people from a biblical, and not everyone's going to agree with it, because everyone has their own thoughts and feelings. But for me, that is telling me something else as well.
100%.
I'll leave it there.
100%. Right. To just bring it back to the course, so to speak, I've got another burning question. And I know this one will be quite an interesting one as well to conversate with you boys. But how do we feel about the research that came out, them saying Black people were 4 times more likely to be infected by COVID-19?
Oh, listen, who's going first, man? Because
I'll go.
I don't mind. I'm about to lick some shots on this one, man.
This is a.
I'm about to lick some shots on this one, man.
Go on, you go.
Nah, someone better go first, because I'm about to lick some shots.
Actually, if I may stop you on there, hold your thoughts. Yeah. Let's go for a little break. Get some drink, because I definitely need a drink.
Are you going to do this to the people, man?
I like that. I like that.
Have a drink on this.
You little cliffhanger.
I like that.
Keep our emotions in check and come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.